What's going on, everybody? This is Just Add Misplay, and today I have a very exciting deck to share with you guys. We have Yidris, the Maelstrom Wielder. This deck is very near and dear to my heart. It's definitely one of the most fun decks that I own, and every time I play this deck, I'm having a great time. The main reason for that is because Yidris has an ability that gives all of your spells that you cast Cascade, as long as you cast them from your hand. So the way that works is you have to deal combat damage with Yidris, and then for the rest of the turn, your spells gain Cascade as long as you cast them from your hand. It's really, really good. It's really fun. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get that combat damage in, so there's some cards in the deck that will help you push that damage through. I pretty much just build this deck using all of the colors right here, everything but white. So I build this entire deck around cards that cost 3 mana or greater. The reason for that is because after casting a spell that costs 8 mana, you don't want to cascade into something that costs 1 or 2 mana. It just feels bad. You want to cascade into the big boys, right? So that's why we got them out here. So I built this deck around doing just that. It's so much fun. I have a lot of my pet cards in here, as I do with most of my decks. So again, if you're watching this and you don't like one of my cards, just take out the card, put in a card you like. Really, no big deal. Personalize your EDH decks. That is what EDH is all about. Speaking of personalizing, because the lowest converted mana cost in the deck is 3 or greater, you can actually have Karuga as your companion. My play group, they don't mind running companions. I know some play groups out there are really strict and they're really against it. It's really whatever you want to do, right? Make commander whatever your play group wants it to be. Karuga is good in this deck because when you play it, you get to draw a card for each other permanent you control that costs 3 or greater. This whole deck is flooded with them. There's literally no cards that cost less than 3 mana. So this is perfect as a companion if you want to run them. If not, just don't run them. Just go like this. Toss them to the side. And look, everyone's happy, right? I'm going to explain this deck. Usually I go the smallest converted mana cost and I work my way up. But this time, I think it'll be fun if we start with the big boys and work our way down. And by doing that, we'll actually see all the cards that we can cascade into. So these can cascade into every other card in the deck. And then we'll move on to the 7s, 6, 5, 4s, and 3s. And you can see how this deck really works and flows together. It's a lot of fun. I hope you guys like it. Hit that thumbs up if you like it so far. Let's get started. I strictly added cards that I like. So this is a whole deck full of 100 cards that are like my personal pet cards. So you're going to see cards in here that are powerful, and then you're going to see cards you might question why they're in here at all. It's because they are my pet cards, but they are so much fun. I have to run them. It's just a personal preference. So hopefully if you look at this deck, you can always take cards out and add your own to personalize it, to make it your own. But this deck is so much fun to play, and you could easily take this deck list and swap out the cards that are my pet cards. I'll mention them as we go through. You can put in cards that are more powerful if you're looking to win. I'm just looking to have fun. I'm a casual player. So let's get started. Our first card is Stonehoof Chieftain. 8 converted mana cost. He has Trample and Indestructible. He's an 8/8. So he's a big boy. Whenever another creature you control attacks, it gains Trample and Indestructible. Okay, that's insane, right? It costs 8 mana, so it should do some insane things. This card is really good. It protects your commander, so you can just swing with him, give him Indestructible, and it also gives Trample to help push through that combat damage so you can get all your spells Cascade. Now, Yidris already has Trample, so it's a nice addition to give all your other creatures Trample. Very strong, starting us off with 8 converted mana. Up next, we have Liege of the Tangle. Again, it has Trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose any number of target lands that you control, put an Awakening counter on them, and they each become 8/8 green elemental creatures. As long as they have those counters, they're still lands. Essentially turns all your lands into a copy of this card. It's pretty crazy. Doing 8 damage isn't that hard to do with an 8/8 Trampler, okay? This card's awesome. Now imagine dealing combat damage with Yidris, and then playing Liege of the Tangle, and you Cascade into something, as if Liege of the Tangle isn't tough enough on its own, right? Oh, this deck is so much fun. I can't wait. I can't wait for you to try it. This is a really good card. It's also a little bit of a pet card. Distended Mindbender. It costs 8, but it has a merge. You probably won't be playing a merge. So whenever you cast it, target opponent reveals their hand. Choose a non-land card that costs 3 or less, and then another one that costs 4 or greater, and they discard both of those cards. It's also a 5/5. It's an Eldrazi card. The art looks sick, and again, it's just a pet card. This will probably be the first card that gets cut, honestly, if I decide to do an upgrade. But as for right now, I'm just going to keep it in. I haven't upgraded this deck for a while. Ooh, what's that over there? Hey guys, check it out. So, up next, we got our 7s. Mind's Dilation. If you watched any of my other videos, Mind's Dilation is a big pet card of mine. It costs 7, and whenever an opponent casts their first spell each turn, that player exiles the top card of their library. If it's non-land, you get to play it without paying its mana cost. It's a lot of fun to play. This whole deck is a lot of fun to play. Zendikar Resurgent, you guys know what it does. It taps for extra mana, and then on top of that, you get to draw cards when you cast creature spells. So good. Cruel Ultimatum. You make an opponent discard 3 cards, they sacrifice a creature and lose 5 life, and then you do the invert of that. So you return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and then you draw 3 cards and gain 5 life. It's doing Nicol Bolas stuff. It's cool. Prince of Thralls is a really, really cool card. I started playing around the Shards of Alara block, so I pulled this card way back when. I never really had a home to play this until Yidris comes along, and it's just a lot of fun. The art is really, really cool. So whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into the graveyard, put it into play under your control unless they pay 3 life. There's a lot of times where they're making hard decisions whether or not they want to pay that 3 life. So it's a lot of fun. It costs 7 and is really, it's just fun. It's just fun to play. Maelstrom Wanderer. Creatures you control have haste, double Cascade. What more can I say? Oh, I can also say it's a 7/5, right? Card's sick. Card's insane. Run it. Play it. Giant Adaphage. Now this card's really cool. It costs 7. It's a 7/7 with trample, deals combat damage, and you get to create a token that is a copy of this card. That's a 7/7 trample that does the same thing. It's just a lot of fun. And to me, I like having fun, so I run it. Sylvan Primordial. Probably not so fun for the opponents anyway. So it enters this battlefield. Each opponent destroy a non-creature permanent, and then you get to search your deck for a forest card. Okay, it's a 6/8, so it's got a little bit of a booty. Dragon Mage. I love Dragon Mage. This is like, it's kind of a pet card, but it's also really good. So it deals combat damage, and then each player does the Wheel of Fortune effect. Discard your hand, draw 7 cards. I really like it. In this deck, you want to be able to recycle your hand often, or as often as you possibly can. If you connect with Yidris, you want to make sure you have a spell to cast that's going to get Cascade, and that's what the whole deck does. That's why we're here, right? We want to play Cascade, and we want to have fun. We got Spearbreaker Behemoth. It's indestructible. You pay 1, you give your creature with 5 or greater indestructible. Guess what? That's your general. Drakaseth, Maul of Flames. It costs 7. Deals 4 to any target, and then 3 to up to 2 other targets whenever it attacks. Really cool. It's a 7/7 flyer. It's also like a pet card. This is a new guy I just added, Yidaro. It's a dinosaur turtle that is an 8/8 with trample and haste. Also, this deck doesn't have anything that costs 3 or less. So if you have this in your opening hand, you can do something on your turn 2. Which is really cool. It's one of the few cards where you can actually interact during the early turns. If not, you're really just playing a land and saying go until the later turns. That's when you're a bigger threat. And maybe people won't bother you if you don't have any threats on the field. If you have this in your open hand, just cycle it and draw a card. 8/8 trample haste. I like it. I know you guys like it too, right? Come on. Come on. Hit that like button if you like it. You like that turtle? Hit the like button. Up next in the 6 slots, we got Staff of Nin. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card, then tap it. Staff of Nin deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Alright, so I haven't really done a deck upgrade. Alright, my apologies. Staff of Nin, reading it now, I think it might be outdated, to be honest with you. I mean, 6 mana, it doesn't really do as much as it used to. When I was playing this deck back in the day, it's so crazy how much Magic has changed. Staff of Nin would put in work. Like that, this was awesome. For 6 mana, right now I'm looking at it, and it really doesn't seem that good. So I should probably replace this. If you have any suggestions what I should replace this with, go ahead and type it in the comments, all right? Up next, we got Bolas's Citadel. It costs 6. Everyone should know what Bolas's Citadel does by now, right? Reveal the top card of your deck. You pay life equal to its mana cost. You get to cast it instead of spending mana for it. So good. Boom. That's all you need to know. Bolas's Citadel. Busted. Ooh. Selvalla's Stampede. This bad boy costs 6 mana. Council's Dilemma. So you're going to be casting votes around the table. Starting with you, each player votes wild or free. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature for each wild vote. And you put those cards onto the battlefield, and then you shuffle it. And then you put a permanent card from your hand for each free vote. It's interesting to see what the opponents will vote for. You might expect them to all vote a certain way. It just goes completely in a different direction. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun. That's why I run it. Rishkar's Expertise. This is a really, really good card. It was great back in the day. It's still great to this day. You draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, which if you have Yidris on the field, it'll be at least 5. So imagine drawing 5 cards, and then you get to cast a card with a converted mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. And then on top of that, you're cascading 5. This deck, it just feels so good to play, honestly. Rishkar's Expertise is solid. Here's another newbie in the deck. We got Shark Typhoon. Now, I personally like to play it by paying that 6 mana cost. Some people like to cycle it. And again, we don't have much going on before turn 3, so you could essentially cycle it to get the shark and draw a card, but I don't know. I like the idea of having it as an enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark. Oh my goodness, and it flies. Really good. Equal to the converted mana cost. By the way, don't sleep on it. Sharks flying in the air. Yeah, you definitely won't want to sleep on that. We got Sunbird's Invocation. This is a pet card. It's like a mini Cascade. So every time you connect with Yidris, you'll get like a second Cascade trigger almost. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards from your library, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Cast a spell revealed this way that's equal to that mana cost or less without paying its mana cost. And put the rest on your bottom in a random order. When you're casting that, second spell won't actually gain Cascade from Yidris's trigger, but that's okay because it's doing its thing. You're already going to get a Cascade trigger from Sunbird's by itself, like when you play Sunbird's Invocation. And then the next turn, it's like giving you another free spell, which is almost like a Cascade. So it feels really good. This card is so good. If you're not running it, please, give it a chance. Sire of Stagnation. Eldrazi 5/7. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, they exile the top 2 cards of their library, and you draw 2 cards. You want to be drawing cards, okay? This is really good for 6 mana. Ulvenwald Hydra. This is another one for 6 mana. It has reach. Its power and toughness is equal to the lands you control, which will probably be at least 6. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a land, put it on the battlefield. Oh, did I say 6? I meant 7. It's good. Run it. Garuda, Doom of Depths. This card, Ikoria, man, I'm telling you. Ikoria is so good. It's a set that everyone just overlooked, I think, but there's a lot of great cards in it. So when you play it, each player puts the top 4 cards of the library into the graveyard, and then you can put a creature card with an even converted mana cost onto the battlefield under your control. So you're cascading on top of this usually. And if Yidris ain't on the field for whatever reason, you still get that that fun shenanigans, right? Up next, we got Thunderfoot, Baloff, Trample, and then if you have your commander on the field, all your other creatures get +2, and Trample. Very, very good card. This is a pet card. Okay, I know it ain't that great, but again, what block is it from? This is actually from Alara Reborn, I believe. This was one of my first foil rare pulls. Back in the day when I didn't buy booster boxes, I just bought single packs, and I pulled a foil rare, and it felt so good. And here it is, still having a home in this deck. Again, it's probably not as strong as it used to be, but this is my deck, and I think this is a lot of fun, and I like to play it. It gets a +1/+1 counter whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, and then you can remove a counter to deal 1 damage. So if someone has a bunch of tokens, you get 1 counter on this thing, and you just remove it to blow up a 1/1 token, and then it'll get a counter. And then you just keep doing that, and you can essentially board wipe. It's probably not the best way to board wipe, but again, it's a lot of fun for me, and like you can save those counters up. It's really cool. Moving on, Jace's Mindseeker. Oh, this card is so busted. Not really. It's a pet card. And it's just battlefield. You pick an opponent, they put the top 5 cards of their library into the graveyard, and you can cast an instant or sorcery card. Now, this is in here because Jace is my guy, okay? I really like Jace. I'm sure a lot of you out there do too. It's definitely not optimal. It's just a 4/4 with flying for 6 mana, which isn't great. But I like the randomness. I love that I can just pick an opponent. Like maybe there's someone who's playing a bunch of like take an extra turn spells, target them, and then beat them with their own cards. Like I love that. I love that effect. It's like a mini mill too. And there's like a mini mill theme in here. Ethereum Horn Sorcerer. This is a pet card of mine. I love that it has Cascade. Okay. And I love that you can pay 3, bring it back to your hand, and you'll always have fuel for Yidris. Always. He's a Minotaur wizard. He's awesome. Just look at that hair. Look at that hair. You like the hair. Who's that in the background? Who's that? Who's that guy in the background? Is that a Johnny? I don't know. Nobody knows. Moving on to the 5 slots, we got Bituminous Blast. Love this card. It has Cascade on it, so you'll get double Cascade from this spell if you hit with Yidris. I'm telling you, doing Cascade is just so much fun. That's why you're here. You want a Cascade, right? Baral's Expertise. It costs 5. Return 3 artifacts or creatures to their owner hands. You can pick your own creatures as well, just in case you don't have a card to cast. And then you get to cast a card that costs 4 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. And when you do that, Yidris' Cascade will trigger again. This card's really good. It's done a lot of shenanigans. Okay? It's a lot of fun and it feels so good. Up next, we've got Nikobolas, the Dragon God. Oh man, there's a lot of text on this card, but he's really good. He's really strong, and his -8, if you get there, can win you the game. I mean, as with most Planeswalkers, right? So this is Keranos, God of Storms. It's an alternate art card. My dear brother made this for me. Steven, if you're watching this, thank you so much. Leave a comment below, Stevie. Let people know who you are. Keranos, God of Storms, helps filter out the deck so that you don't draw lands at the beginning of your turn, but you can always, if you do, you draw a second card. So it's really good, and if you don't draw a land, you get the Lightning Bolt something, which is really, really awesome. Up next, we got the Eldest Reborn. Very good card. It recycles your creatures or planeswalkers from a graveyard if you get to the 3rd saga, and it hits each opponent. First they'll sack a creature or planeswalker, then they'll discard a card, and then you get to put one of them into play. We have Berserker's Onslaught. So attacking creatures you control have double strike. This card is insane. If you give Yidris double strike and he hits twice, your spells will get double Cascade. You heard me right. Double Cascade. So the next time you play a spell that turn, if Yidris connects, of course, you get to Cascade twice. How insane is that? You got to play this card. No matter what, just go out, buy it, bite the bullet. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun. And it gives all your attacking creatures double strike. And we got Dictate of Karametra. This card's really good. A lot of the time, you're going to be the one who uses the mana the most because you're constantly playing big spells from your hand that are going to gain Cascade. And if you're not sure if your opponents are playing big cards or not, it does have Flash. So you can just kind of hold out one turn if you need to. That way you can have a big turn next turn. Hopefully it will pay off. Again, this card probably isn't as good as maybe some of the updated cards are, but I personally like it. And I like that it doubles all mana on the field. So it'll feel, it's almost like you're doing a favor for everyone. Same here. We got the Ancient. He does the same exact thing. He just doubles your mana when he taps. He costs 5 and he's a 7/5. So doubling mana is important because you want to play these big spells. Keeper of Keys. So you enter the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you're the Monarch, creatures you control can't be blocked this turn. Giving Yidris unblockable, you're going to win games from that easily. Okay, and throwing Monarch around the table in Commander is a lot of fun. So that's why it's in there. Torn Elemental. So whenever he attacks, tap all creatures defending player controls, making a clear pathway for Yidris. Giganosaurus. This is honestly in here because it's a 10/10 for 5 mana. And I love cascading into Giganosaurus. It's just like Cascade and you hit a 10/10 creature. It's just ridiculous. Everyone at the table goes nuts. All right. It's a good meme. I do it for the meme. We got Sirach, Dragonclaw. He's a 6/6, costs 5. He cannot be countered, and creature spells you control can't be countered, and he gives all your creatures trample. He can probably be replaced, but he's in here because I think he's cool. Mercutio Chemister. I really like this card. I like his abilities. I know he's a little overcosted for what he does, but I like that you can draw 2 cards, and he's a creature, and cascading into him doesn't feel terrible. And then I like that he's also removal on the battlefield. So you can just pay 1 and like essentially ping something. So he's kind of a pet card. I like his armor. I like that he's from Return to Ravnica. I can already hear you guys in the comments wanting to replace him. So I'm not going to keep talking about how much I like him. We'll just skip on by. Neheb the Eternal. Now, this is one you're going to want to keep. Okay, at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add 1 red to your mana pool for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. This card is busted. That's going to help you have mana after the combat step to cast those cards with Cascade with. Oh man, it's so good. You got to run it. It always works out so well for me. Up next, we got a little bit of mill cards because I wanted to throw like an alternate win condition. Nemesis of Reason. Whenever he attacks, defending player mills the top 10. I thought that was cool. I think the card looks wicked, and it's just like another threat on the field. That way they're not only targeting Yidris. I like them. And we also have Consuming Aberration. Again, it's like a mill pseudo strategy. It's like a second theme in the deck because I really personally like the idea of milling my opponents in EDH. Every card that a player puts in their deck for EDH is really good. So having them throw it in their graveyard, they're going to feel that and it's going to take a hit. I mean, unless they're running cards that are like pet cards, right? I think you should run pet cards though. I mean, that's what EDH is all about, right? Having fun. Moving on to the 4 slots, we have Angrith. Do not sleep on Angrith. Giving your creatures menace is really, really good. Ral Zarek. This is another pet card. Tap target permanent and then untap another target permanent. If they have a blocker and you got your commander out, you can just tap their blocker to try to like make a way through with that trample damage, or they got a big threat or whatever. Also, -2 can get rid of a blocker as well. -7, you're probably not going to do it, so we're not going to talk about it. But I do like Ral Zarek, and I like the artwork. Chandra Pyromancer. This is another pet card, probably outdated by now. I like the +1 that you can ping a player and hit one of their creatures, and then the creatures can't block for that combat. So to me, it almost makes your Yidris unblockable depending on the board state. Nicol Bolas, the Ravager. You play him, each opponent discards a card. Then you can pay 7, and you can transform him. into a planeswalker. Imagine cascading into that and then being able to flip them over into a planeswalker. I mean, that's fun, but you can also just cast like a 7-cost spell and just run another Cascade merry-go-round, which is a lot of fun too. But if you don't have any cards in your hand and you're trying to dump mana, you can use that for that as well. Solemn Simulacrum. This might be outdated. I don't know. I don't know anymore with EDH. I like it. You get a land, and then when it dies, you draw a card. Pretty solid staple. Now, Levitation. It's an enchantment that gives all your creatures flying. It's an uncommon from M12 that makes you win games. A lot of times it just says, hey, your general is now unblockable. It'll help you push through that combat damage so that you can gain the Cascade effect on your spells. Bloodbraid Elf has Cascade, so double Cascade to me is real fun. This is one of those iconic cards. Playing this with a double Cascade trigger, it's just awesome. Okay, we got another pet card, but don't underestimate it. It's Tidal Barracuda. Your opponents can't cast spells on your turn. That's why I'm running this. If all players can cast spells as though they had flash, that's also a lot of fun for the table. In my experience, people don't typically target Tidal Barracuda because they like that flash. But when it's your turn, they can't be doing that flash, which means no shenanigans during the combat step when you're swinging with Yidris. Really good. Gonti, Lord of Luxury. This is another pet card. I love the fact that you can look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library and exile one of them, and then you get to play that card. That's just fun, man. I love it. Gonti, you're a keeper in my book. And then we got good old Spark Double. I said it so many times. This card is just bonkers. Just run it. Every blue deck, run Spark Double. Just do it. You'll be happy. You'll be happy you did. Moving on to the 3 converted mana costs, and that's rounding out the end of the video, other than the lands, of course. We have Mind Funeral. Target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they hit 4 lands, and then they throw all those cards into the graveyard. It's a lot of fun, and again, it's like a side mill thing. Mind Funeral, when you cascade into it, it's just a lot of fun. To me, I love it. It's like a little side game, right, where they have to mill 4 cards. Thassa. It's really good because you can give a creature you control unblockable, which is, really great. And then it also filters your deck. At the beginning of your turn, you get to scry 1. Thassa's pretty sweet. Chromatic Lantern, fix those lands. Whisper Silk Cloak, also pay 2, unblockable. I think Enshroud. So you get unblockable and Shroud. Look at that. Look at that foily boy. Foily hood. Now, if it makes you invisible, but you're foily, can they still see you? Do they see like a glisten? I don't know. Equip for 2, unblockable, on your general. You love it. Speaking of loving, we got Temple Bell. This is my pettiest of all the pet cards I own. I love Temple Bell. I love tapping and giving everyone a card. It's my thank you for everyone being able to get together and play the game. Ashiok, Nightmare Weaver. This is a lot of fun. You get to exile 3 cards from your opponent's library. Minus X, you get to put a creature. X is their converted mana cost under your control that was exiled with Ashiok. Then minus 10, exile all cards from all opponents' hands and graveyards. It's really cool. It's a lot of fun. So we got the Royal Scions. I really like them for card filtering. Draw a card, discard a card, or you can just give +2 and first strike to your Yidris. He already has trample, so that part doesn't really matter. Again, it has a lot of options for 3, and it gives another threat on the board for the opponents to be worried about. Definitely check them out. And then we have Domri, Anarch of Bolas. This card's only like $1, and I don't understand why, because giving your creatures +1, +0 as like an anthem, and then you can also make your next spell not be countered, seems really good. Like, I can play this turn 3. If you're going to play your commander, you just +1 it, and then it can't be countered. Like, I like that. And then it has -2 where you can have your creature fight another creature for removal. I don't know. He seems really cool. I think he's underpowered. Speaking of underpowered, let's talk about Nightveil Spectre. This is my biggest pet card. I like that when it deals combat damage to a player, they have to exile the top card of their library, and you can play that card. It's a 4-color deck, so there's a good chance you're going to be able to pull that off. To me, that's just a lot of fun. I know there's better cards out there. And speaking of which, here's one of them now. Thief of Sanity. It pretty much does the same thing as Nightveil Spectre, but it does it better, right? So you get to look at the top 3. You can play the card as though it was any mana, and it's a lot of fun. Thief of Sanity is really cool. Again, this is definitely a pet card, and I like using the opponent's hand against them, and then they have no one to be mad at but themselves. When you play a spell that they're not too, happy to have in play against them, it's like their own thing. Hey, did you guys check this out yet? There's a Discord in the link below. Click on it. There's a lot of great people there. It's a great community. Join the Tavern Brawlers Discord. Looking forward to seeing you guys there. All right? Maybe we can get some games in on webcam. Up next, we're going to go over the lands. Starting off, we got a Reliquary Tower. Again, Mr. Stephen B. Thank you. There's one more card in here that he did custom for me. Very, very cool. This makes it so that you have no maximum hand size. Command Tower for 5-color mana fixing. Same thing with Rupture Spire. Exotic Orchard. Tap for a color your opponents control. Very good. You're playing a 4-color deck. It's going to work. All right. Unless you're playing 3 mono white players, which, come on now. Evolving Wilds, Ash Barrens, and Terramorphic Expanse. You pretty much chuck those so that you can get basics. Filter lands. We got the one of each Vivid Creek, Vivid Crag, Vivid Marsh, Vivid Grove. And then we have 1 mountain, 1 island, 1 swamp, and 1 forest. Wait a minute. Why isn't that forest full art? That's a misplay. That's why. We got Crumbling Necropolis, the Tri-Lands, Frontier Bivouac, Opulent Palace, Savage Lands for our Tri-Lands. And then up next, these are also my personal favorite cards. Like I said, the first 3 turns, you're not really doing much, so you might as well have them tap lands. My favorite tap lands are the temples because that's Scry 1. I love Scry 1. So we're playing the Rakdos, Golgari, Dimir, Izzet, and Simic temples. Okay, they're a lot of fun. I like them. You can make them whatever you want. Here's the last card from Mr. Stevie. We got a Volcanic Island. Very, very pretty alternate art. 3 more for Izzet. Like the whole tap thing. Oh my gosh, Izzet Guildgate. Okay, this needs an update. Swiftwater Cliffs. Enter the battlefield, gain 1 life. Enters tapped, gain 1 life. It's really cool. If you can remember when the guild gates were great in Commander, leave a comment below because that's when I was playing, all right? That's probably so outdated right now. Oh, I'm afraid to see what the rest are. Bloodfell Caves. Enter the battlefield, gain 1 life. I really like that effect. Oh, I like it so much I did it twice. Then a Dragon Skull Summit. Dismal Blackwater. Gain that life. Enter tapped. Sunken Hollow. Jungle Hollow, gain a life, and then a Hissing Quagmire. It could be a creature. That's really why it's in there. And it's tapped again. I can't really do much on those first few turns. We got Thornwood Falls, gain a life, and Rugged Highlands, gain a life. All right, so that's the whole dang thing. Some things to keep in mind with Yidris is you need to deal that combat damage to get Cascade. But once you get that green light, save your mana, swing with it. Your mana is open, and your opponents might think you have a counterspell or whatever, but we don't run them because we don't want to cascade into them. Maybe the opponent knows that. Maybe they don't. I don't know. We're just doing our thing. This whole deck is just doing its thing. Let us do its thing. There's not a whole lot of removal in the deck. My play group we're not really too heavy on removal. Like, there's some players that go lean into it hard. There's also some players that just are trying to just play and have fun, and that's what this is, all right? Again, shout out to the Tavern Brawlers. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. I really, really do appreciate it. And everyone who's been commenting on my videos, thank you so much. It means so much to me, and I'm happy you guys are liking it. We'll see you in the next video. Personal Yidris, whenever, so you get to reborn. No, I shouldn't say that. Reborn the monster. So you get to reborn the monster. Oh, sorry, that's terrible. Wrong card game. Ethereum Hornshaper. Whoa, that's not your name. Whenever permanent, and it just goes. Whoopsies. Torrent Kit. Bloodbraid. Run a Spark. Frontier Bryobank. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like my content and want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also hit the like button. It goes a long way and it really helps out a lot. You can find me on Twitch at JustAddMisplay. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you in the next video.